So I got my first aquarium in 3rd grade and quickly fell in love. But while my fish mostly lived, I often wondered if they were happy. So in 4th grade, either from his unbearable ennui or deeper psychological troubles, Spock, my blue betta fish, jumped out of the tank and ended his life. I remember seeing his body the next day, a bright blue sliver in my red tomato-shaped rug. Horrified, I plopped his stiff form back into the tank, where it sank like a soggy mini-wheat. I blamed myself. But after the release of Pixar's Finding Nemo, an LA dispatcher for Roto-Rooter Plumbing received over 70 calls from the families of children who flushed their live pet fish under the impression that all drains lead to the ocean. These fish most likely died in the sewers, either from the trauma of swirling or the gases, chemicals, and bacteria that will asphyxiate or poison a fish. Despite their pure intention of capturing a tiny bubble of the undersea beauty of Finding Nemo, these children's misunderstandings represent a clear and present danger to their fish. Alright, well that image isn't going to show up. Most people, my childhood self included, do not know that they are caring for their fish improperly. They'll say, voices peaking with pride, I had a goldfish that lived for 3 years. I want to say, no, you don't understand that a goldfish in a healthy, sustained environment should live for 20. Moreover, keeping your fish alive does not necessarily equate to ensuring its health or happiness. For a long time, I stayed silent for fear of seeming rude, pedantic, or worst of all, like I might belong to PETA. But I love fish, and every single time I see a fishbowl crammed in between 2 Orgo textbooks or atop a mini fridge surrounded by empty cans of PBR, I die a little inside. 4th grade me didn't know any of this, but Spock's suicide prompted me to become a fish expert. So every day after school, I would go to the San Mateo Public Library and read about fish, about how their gills worked, or about how much peat is too much peat in an aquarium. And actually, I worked on a marine research boat for 2 years in high school, counting, identifying, and analyzing thousands of fish over the course of the summer. But I remember one day I caught these 4 tiny baby shark pups. And I remember holding this tiny tiger shark, no bigger than a corn dog, in my arms, and releasing it into the sea. My eyes have never been bigger. The myth of the 3-second memory has long enabled easy exploitation of fish under the guise of their oblivion. People long believed that fish only retained information for approximately 3 seconds, doomed to eternally rediscover the ceramic castle at the center of their gallon-wide surroundings. Most portrayals of fish in the media, such as Finding Nemo's endearingly forgetful Dory, perpetuate this stereotype. These notions of the dim-witted fish have some foundation in the traditionalist view of evolution. As far as the ladder of cognitive, structural, and behavioral complexity goes, fish remain on the bottom rung. But what people fail to realize is that as the most ancient of the major vertebrate groups, fish have had plentiful time and opportunity to develop very intricate and adaptable behavioral patterns that rival those of terrestrial vertebrates. Perhaps this prejudice can be somewhat attributed to deeper, more ingrained mindsets. As terrestrial creatures, humans have long coexisted with dogs and dik-diks, leopards and lemurs, and other such land-based life forms for millennia. Fish to us are aliens. Moreover, our primary interactions with them do not cast them in the best light, as we either see them flopping around on a boat or staring at us, eyes glazed over, garnished with fennel and lemon. But once you enter their world, fish are magic. Goldfish have a memory span of up to 3 months and can even tell time, as determined by the fish's ability to press a lever at a certain time each day to receive food. Fish share culturally transmitted information, forage for food, build nests in which to hide, and will even transform an aggressive fight over territory to a sexy fight if they know that females are watching. But scientists still have leagues to cover before convincing the public that fish are, surprisingly enough, intelligent. I don't get it. Forget outer space. The ocean is this whole other unexplored horizon full of strange and incredible sights. Whenever I feel sad, uninspired, or particularly in the mood for procrastination, I watch Blue Planet, BBC's documentary of our oceans, as the dulcet British narration of David Attenborough and snapshots of the sea lull me into bliss. A spotted fish with hand-shaped fins that strolls along the seafloor. Swarms of baby cuttlefish no bigger than peanuts bobbing along in the tide as they change color for the first time. Constellations of translucent plankton suspended like stars on a blue sky. Fish are complex, magnificent creatures not low-maintenance pets. When you keep a fish, unlike almost every other known pet, it requires that you sustain an aquatic ecosystem in a terrestrial world. When you buy a gerbil, you do not need to fuss over the pH or ammonia level of its cage, nor must you set up a complex filtration system comprised of air pumps, tubing, and mechanical, biological, and chemical filtration media. The real villain is the fishbowl. Simple, aesthetic, and blissfully cheap, the fishbowl is best described as a silent assassin, dispatching scores of fish despite their owner's best intentions. Now, when I lit upon this information, I felt as if I had discovered some secret universal truth. I felt obligated to tell someone, to tell everyone. So, every Saturday, I would go to my local Petco and target people who I thought seemed most vulnerable to poor fish-keeping decisions. People like kids with parents who spent their entire visit talking about what Judy did last week and, oh my god, did you see her panty line? Grungy college kids coated with flannel and a hangover. Pierced teenage boys whose first definition of the word pot would not be the one found in a kitchen. These lost souls, I could help. In my eyes, I was the messiah of the goldfish. Until one day, in the midst of a particularly heated discussion with a soccer mom trying to buy her Cheeto-fingered son a beta fish, I may have called her stupid after she refused to hear my arguments against the fishbowl. She may have called the manager on me, who may have escorted me outside of the store and informed me that I was no longer welcome at that particular Petco, 3012 Bridgepoint Parkway, Foster City, California, if you're curious, and watched me as I called my mom to come pick me up in the parking lot because I couldn't drive, because I was 13. But here's what I tried to tell her. Within any enclosed aquatic system with fish, the chemical compound ammonia will inevitably arise, primarily due to the decomposition of the organic acids found in the tank's organic matter. Fish bowls are especially prone to these spike levels of ammonia because they lack the colonization's bacteria cultures that dwell in the filtration systems of tanks. To attain the same ammonia levels of a properly cycled tank in a fish bowl, one needs to clean the water and clean the tank 2 to 3 times a week. Most people who keep fish bowls don't know this, and many of those who do know this still fail to reform their fish-keeping, fish bowl habits. The most popular inhabitants of these chambers, the betta fish, hold this status not because they can thrive in bowls, but because they are one of the few fish that bowls will not kill easily. Bettas possess a labyrinth organ, a maze-like reticulation of plates interlocking like chainmail, fitting in a fish that will fight to the death upon encountering another of its kind. Gauzy membranes coat these plates, absorbing oxygen through lattices of capillaries. Like us, bettas breathe air. But the labyrinth is auxiliary respiration, a safety plan for when gills fail. But this mechanism of survival, one that allows a betta fish that has hurled itself from its bowl to survive for hours limp on the ground, allows it to sustain health in a toxic environment. Ammonia will provoke in most fish a physiological response. Its gills will purple like a bruise, and streaks will erupt across its body, blazing crimson. Novice fish keepers will often ask why their fish appears to be bleeding. Ammonia-poisoned fish will gasp for air at the surface for the oxygen they desperately crave. But betta fish, with their iridescent scales and air-breathing tendencies, often do not display these signs of poisoning until it is too late. Granted, fish don't carry the same emotional resonance as a kitten or a puppy or a baby hedgehog. The ASPCA has never tugged at the heartstrings of America with a slow-motion montage of maltreated fish, such as the crooning of Sarah McLachlan. Actually, fish can't be held in the arms of an angel without compromising their protective mucus coat. But the ASPCA actually offers no guidelines for the humane treatment of pet fish. Nevertheless, owning a pet fish should carry the same ethical responsibilities that come with owning a larger, fluffier pet. So, do not buy a fish because you think it would look cute on a coffee table or in a pretty thrifted mason jar. Do not buy a fish because it was the only pet your college would allow you to keep, even though you really wanted a chinchilla. Do not buy a fish and keep it in a Svedka bottle because you want it at some pub off campus that sells $12 beers that you don't really want anyway. Buy a fish because it is exactly that, a fish. Ethereal in motion, iridescent in color, and elegant in being. Buy a fish because you can commit to ensuring its health and happiness, and recognize such a responsibility as sacred. Buy a fish because it is the closest we can come to glimpsing another world, where eye to eye we stare at each other, not so much in understanding, but in wonder. Thank you.